I know, right? Like I'm super excited. And because sometimes I get on these calls and I just bullshit for a minute and we're like, "Gosh, man, we should have recorded that. Like that sounds like with other spiritual healers. And it's not that like it's bullshit or anything, but like we're learning from each other and it's nice to be in like community with other women, like that sort of thing. So what have you been
Yeah.
up to? Like give me like a quick recap of your life. And you married Mike.
I did, yeah, yeah.
I love that you guys are
So
still together. That's awesome.
thanks. Yeah, it was really we reconnected, I guess, like at our the 10-year reunion. And then he got my number and then I blew him off for a year and a half. And then I was like, yeah, I don't really see you like that. Um, and I'm like, you dated my friend in high school, so that's not a thing.
That's
Um,
hilarious.
and then so like about a year and a half went past. So we started kind of talking a little bit, and then he came down to Austin and started talking more. And then I guess he came down Christmas holiday, and nothing like really happened, but it just sort of felt different. And then I went up. I had some vacation time to kill at the job I was at. Otherwise, I couldn't carry it over after like a certain period in February. So I went up in February because he was living in Dallas at the time. And I guess like that first day, really, we were like, or that weekend, we were like, what are we doing here? Like we're 30. Like, are we, I don't really have time to like date around. Like, the fuck is our life? Like, and so we started dating and then we're engaged like 5 months later, I
Oh,
guess.
I love
Yeah, and then got married in 2013. So
like
yeah, I don't think
making
of him as my
believe in
friend's
love.
boyfriend anymore.
What's that?
Yeah, I said I don't think of him as my friend's boyfriend anymore. I think
Oh
of him
yeah, I know, right? It's so
as
funny, like the things we tell ourselves, to like
Mhm.
avoid the thing, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to deal with that right now. Like I do a whole lot of next. I'm like, you're not it.
Yeah, not it.
Yeah, yeah.
But
You know,
yeah, I think it helps like kind of knowing someone from the same, like we understand each other, having come from, like a really, I think like a unique place. A military town is a really unique place.
for sure.
So I think that helps, but then allowed us to be grown-ups too, because we lived 10 years apart, had created our own identity. So
Yeah, for sure. You're like not the same person. I think it's funny when we assume like people are like still the same. I mean, it would be sad, but like,
yeah,
like,
yeah, too. Yeah. Yeah. So, and then went to grad school here in Austin, and I started my practice in 2010. Um, and then I've done marriage and family therapy and licensed professional counselor. Yeah, all since 2010. And then I was doing like agency work off and on. I was working with moms who are incarcerated with their kids, like doing family therapy in the prison. Still doing private practice. Like I worked in foster care for a really long time too. So like just a lot of different stuff. And then now it's like sole private practice. Um, and then I'm a supervisor as well. So like I teach sort of like we have to do like a residency. Like if you think of the equivalent of a doctor, right? Like you go to school, you take all your board exams, then you have like 3,000 hours of like a residency that you have to do as a licensed person before you
okay.
can be fully licensed.
Oh
So
yeah,
you need
yeah.
a supervisor, like a rendering physician, or like the attending or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so that's me. I do that. I supervise
Girl,
associates coming into the field. I know. So
that's so awesome. And I feel like that's so like empowering to like women or, in general, just be like, because you work with women, do you like working with, is it mostly women or is it like dudes?
yeah, so my focus is my business is Austin Women's Counseling. So I primarily work with women. I also have a certification in perinatal mental health. So that's looking at what they define it as like conception through the first year of life, which I think is bullshit because I personally define that as discernment. You might be like, oh, I might want to start trying. Maybe I will eat this thing. I won't eat salami, or I won't have this glass of wine, or I might start making these lifestyle changes or whatever.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like to me, it's discernment or IVF or like all of these pieces. in the first year of life, like for the baby's first year of life, like there can still be stuff that's lingering. And if you don't deal with those mental health issues, of course, right? Like it can
Absolutely.
create long-standing stuff,
No, for
anxiety.
sure. Because I feel like babies' brains are like these little sponges and we don't like foster them. Like they could do anything. We just gotta
Mhm.
start like early and make it not weird or a stigma to be like, oh, we're gonna teach you about your bodies. Or like I
Mhm.
legit think like a child could learn anatomy and physiology, like at that age because their brain
Yeah.
is so massive and
Yeah.
sponge-like or whatever. So I think our fucking school system is so fucked. There's so
Mhm.
many things I want to ask you too, but I don't want to. Um,
I know.
how is it
Well, my
working
focus
with,
with that certification, at least, is for the parents, right? So, like the mental health disorders that may come with pregnancy, and like how your reaction, or
Mhm.
maybe you having postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression, OCD, like even psychosis, right? Like is going to be affecting babies. So,
Yeah.
but I don't think it stops at when the baby's 1 year old, and like so. Yeah, so that's kind of been my, I don't know. Yeah, but I'm so curious, like for your journey too, of like nursing and this new venture that you're starting as well. Yeah, so like I don't know. I'm glad to reconnect.
Oh yeah, no, me too. But I want to ask you about working with the women in prison. Like, how was that for you? Was it scary? Was it rewarding? Like, what was like one memory, like the most memorable thing that like changed your perception on, I don't know, like the healthcare system, or you know,
Mm.
or did you feel like nothing surprises you anymore?
I think it was humbling in that like when we would leave, so the program was through Girl Scouts. We would take it was a Girl Scout troop and kind of plus. So they got counseling on the side, and then they got to go visit their moms once a month. Um, and I think the thing that really stuck out with me is every time we got a new kid, I'd have to remind myself of like this first visit when we say goodbye is going to be real fucking hard. And
Yeah.
like you got to be the grown up, right? Like you can't be crying because they're like, I just want my mom,
Yeah.
like that's. And so like when mom's crying and she has to like see her kid like leave when she can't go with him, and then the kids like I mean I did it for over 10 years, like, and it's still
Oh
like
my.
it's painful to see like this is still their mom. And it was humbling when we would be eating together doing a therapeutic activity or whatever, like this is still their mom and their baby, like you still just want to have this connection. And I remember one mom who'd been in probably at this point like 6 years. They were doing like a spa day, and she got lotion to rub her kid's feet, and she's like, I don't remember what your feet look like. Like, oh, your feet aren't, they don't have calluses yet or something. And
Yeah.
she's 10. But like, like just being able to even do their hair, or like they don't it's they're still a mom and a kid,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
I think the having that humility of like there's still this connection, and of like of course, right, like I needed that reminder. But seeing the damage that how that can have like affect the relationship if they don't have services like this, which many of which have been cut, of course. But um yeah, I think the biggest memory is like the hardest part of saying goodbye that first time, because the kid doesn't know and they're like, well, I just want to be with my mom. Why can't I
Yeah.
just go back to your bunk with you? Yeah.
So, that's sad. Like, that sucks. Do you feel like you compartmentalize a lot of things? Like, do you just keep like that part of your life, or do you feel like you were calloused, or did you really have to like go home and do the work? Like,
Mm. Um, I didn't feel calloused because like I felt like I could always pretty much stay connected with the moms. And I think so a lot of the parents that I worked with, the moms were the caretakers of the kid. And they were usually, doing something, but they were, like working poor. And then they had to, if they can get money for their kids who are in their care much easier if you just sell drugs, or if like forge a check or whatever, because your kids have to eat, and you could work 3 days and then do this, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
at your normal job. So it's like, it was a lot of it was caretaking role. And then what we would see is this maternal ripple effect, right? So then mom gets locked up from like 18 to 24 months, depending on what level of offense this is. And then they go to grandma, or they go to sometimes their aunt. I had one kid with her great grandma.
Dang.
Like it's like this keeps going back on the women and the
Yeah.
generational pieces. But a lot of the offenses were drug related or yeah, like sometimes assault. I'm not gonna like sugarcoat it. It wasn't always that, but
Yeah.
when it's like, hey, they're trying to take care of their family, like that. I mean, who can't understand that? Like you would do anything to be able to provide for your kid.
Yeah, for sure. Like that's your blood. I mean, I love my kid that much. I would murder for my child. So like,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you gotta be, and if you're the only one who's on deck caretaking, and sometimes you're so overwhelmed too.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's
No, that shit sucks. I was not
yeah.
meant to parent alone. So like I am very grateful for my baby daddy like to be in my life and my son's life because it really takes a lot of freaking anxiety. Like I am not cut from that cloth. Like not to
Yeah.
say I don't have a connection to my child. If I didn't have that, that would suck. But I definitely wasn't like, oh my God, I want to have babies. I was all like, I ain't have no kids.
You're like, okay, back to business.
Yeah, like I'm like gonna just put this out there. It's gonna be so fucked up, but embrace it.
Yeah, I can hold it.
Like I freaking when I after I had Noah and he's 16 now or so like right after I did not let my ex-husband come inside me ever after that because I did not want to have kids at all.
Yeah.
I
Well,
am
that's the
so
thing is
sure
like
too much, but yeah.
it changes your sex, man. Like, and I see this a lot, especially working with parents. Like, it's like when you have a loss, that changes your sex. If you're like, hey, I never really wanted this, or I didn't intend on this, or I don't want to do this again, like being able to relax, or like, yeah, I mean, or not even just relax, right? But like, it's just like, yeah, I don't want that. I don't want you to come inside me because I know what happens. I know what the other side of this is. So it's nuts how it's like we expected to flip a switch.
Right, right.
Oh, are you trying? Oh, we're just seeing what happens. That's bullshit. You know what you're doing. You're either pull it
Yeah, yeah,
out or not.
yeah, yeah.
And
No,
it's
for
like,
sure.
I don't hardly ever know anybody who's just like, oh, it's completely fine. Like there's some part of you that's going to lean one way or the other. And it's
For
like,
sure.
we expect that sex and reproduction in general to be this switch because it's like, it's no, 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 prevent, prevent, prevent. You don't just like, it's not like a dimmer, like, well, I might go off a little bit and then I really won't care what happens. It's just like, you do care one way or the other, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. I mean, you gotta pay. I mean, I pay attention because I don't want, especially now with all the crazy fucking laws. You don't know what the laws are anywhere. Like, I don't pay attention. Like, I am the worst. I live in my little bubble of happy oblivion. And I'm like, no, thank you. I don't want to know what's happening out there, but I'm not like that oblivious. Uh, but like I would not want to be in that situation either. Like if I were to get knocked up and then I don't have the resources I need, like that is blows my fucking mind. Like I can't understand
Wow.
at all. That's how I feel about cannabis too, though. Like, really? Are you fucking serious? Like that saves people's lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there are these states like Texas, right, that are really trying to make examples or like try to do set the standard right for other places.
Yes, no, Nebraska's the same. They're holding on real tight.
Oh man. Oh yeah.
I mean, well, I'm glad that we did get medical like approved this last election, but I just feel like I'm trying not to put that out there. I don't want it to be like this difficult experience, but it's taken them a really long time. And I just don't understand it. Like hearing these people's stories, and even like the science behind it. Oh my gosh, I could geek out on the science of cannabis and the endocannabinoid system. I get so excited. I do this networking call with the Graduate Nurses Student Academy. I'm a liaison for my school because I'm in nurse practitioner school.
Hmm.
And she was talking. I told her, I was like, hey, I'm a cannabis nurse. I'm a nurse coach, blah, 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 whatever. I gave my spiel because we're supposed to do that. And then she's like, oh, cannabis. She's like, I just learned about the endocannabinoid system in my neurology class. I was like, what? That's wild. And like, yay, because it's been like way too long. I think like they discovered the endocannabinoid system like in the 90s. Uh, yeah, late 80s possibly. So
Oh,
it's, you know,
I
been
don't
like,
know anything about it. This
oh
is
yeah.
great. This is
And
awesome.
like,
Yeah.
let
Yeah,
me tell
I would love
you,
to learn more.
it's magical on so many levels. Like I can geek out on, you know, like textiles. Like if we made houses out of a hempcrete, then like they burn at a higher degree, like maybe 300 or more, which
Mhm.
like I don't really know, you know, I'm sure it's easier to catch like wood on fire and stuff and whatever we use, all the synthetic stuff just goes
Mhm.
up into flames. So that's and like you can every part, even to make paper. Like, why are we like killing our Mother Earth by doing these horrible things when I mean it cleanses the ground? It's like, you know, it like soaks up all the heavy metals in the ground and it cleans it out. It's wild, girl. I could go on,
Yeah,
okay?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know any of it. So like this is
But
I mean I want to soak it up.
how do you feel about like plant medicine? Have you like do your patients do plant medicine? Do you ask them like how it
Yeah.
affects them? I'd love
So
to hear that.
so for okay, so how do I feel like for me, like I am not knowledgeable. That's the thing is like there's so much that I don't know. Like I was not the kind of kid who would like go smoke weed, right? Like, and that's okay. Like I'm all like, hey, that's fine. You do you. I remember like in our middle school, people would trade weed for cookies. Like I remember all that. Like, we were selling that was their little currency. It was so like for me it's a lot of a lack of knowledge, which is my own like aware, like I need to understand better. Um, but I also think like I mean I definitely see the benefits, especially when people are like, hey, yeah, like I took a gummy like to go to sleep, and or just whatever, like to being able to utilize something that's not pharmacology, traditional pharmacology, I think is really, really big.
Yeah, for
For
sure.
me, I don't know enough because I've actually started to think more about like the THCA, right? Like, and what that would be like to help manage my own
Absolutely.
Ileana. Yeah, but it's a lack of honestly, the lack of understanding. But I think where my and I will say too, like at least personally, part of what that has been is like yeah, the law, the yeah, like the legal pieces.
Right, right.
If I had to, like pee clean for work, I'm like, I don't want to fuck that up.
Yeah, I
Um,
never I don't pee for no
but
one.
but I also like my grandfather died of lung cancer within 6 weeks, and he never smoked at all. So I've always been like, I mean, not just like weed, but like it's just he smoked, I think, for 2 years when he was in the Navy, like, as a teenager or whatever. But
Yeah.
like, I've always been like super aware of just not wanting to smoke in general because I'm like, oh my gosh, like if my family member died within 6 weeks, like, I don't want to trigger whatever that gene is, right?
Right, yeah.
So I'm like, well, how would I even? Is it like I don't even know how to go about that, like if I'm like, okay, how would this even work? Like if I got an edible, like how do I go about buying an edible? Like which sounds so stupid, but it's okay. Like everybody's got to start. I give myself grace for
Yeah,
that.
no, for sure.
Um,
It's no
but when
here.
it comes, yeah, I love information, but like when it comes to clients, um, yeah, like I mean, I support it. I want them to be able to like have alternatives. I think where I get stuck is like when it's interfering with their daily life.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, when you're not able to remember things at work, right? Or like, hey, I can only relax and go to sleep if I smoke weed. Like when it like finding that line of dependence versus a medicinal, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Which we can abuse any medicine,
yeah,
but
yeah,
like
no, for
what
sure.
is, like what
Absolutely.
is getting in the way of your life? Um, so I think sometimes, it's like, how do you refer out? Um, and a lot of times when I have clients who are like, I don't want to do pharmacology, um, or I was, sharing with you, I have the client who has a TBI, and she's like, I just can't do certain medications. I have a lot of clients who I do say, okay, well, let's look at if this is not what you want to do, or you don't like how your body feels, on these medications. I don't ever push it one way or the other.
Awesome.
But what are you comfortable doing? Well, I don't even know. or, like I only want to do farm like meds. I'm like, okay, well, what about acupuncture? Have you looked at acupuncture before? Have you talked to your acupuncturist about any kind of herbs to help you in this way? Or, like, have you gotten your levels checked for your gut health, right? Like, is there anything we need to be looking at uh, in terms of hypothyroidism that's affecting anxiety? Like, what can we look at for supplements? I'm not that person for supplements or, certain like nutrients or whatever.
Like the
But I'm all
nutraceuticals.
about like looking outside of the box too for
Yeah.
what they're going to work with.
Yeah, for sure. Like, especially if they're ready to make that change, I would
Mm-hmm.
say like, you know, easily, like if it's obvious or whatever, like,
Mm-hmm.
moving, working out,
Yeah,
losing
of course.
weight,
Yeah, movements.
like, man, losing weight, like totally changes your life. But getting to that point sucks. So sometimes, but like if you're ready,
Mm-hmm.
like kind of to just telling people, hey, just try the one thing, or just the one thing, just try
Yeah,
drinking some water. Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's what I'm like, hey, your basic needs. You need to go pee. Are you taking time to go pee and poop?
yeah,
Like, what is it?
seriously.
Yeah, like what are your basic needs? Are you tired? Are you what is it? The halt, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. So like, are those basic needs met?
Right.
Are you true? Like, and I'm always like, when you need a moment, one of my like go-to prescription things is like, go to the bathroom. That's where you can legit be alone if you're feeling overwhelmed. But then like you can truly let your body completely relax and let it all out.
Yeah.
And then you're not holding these pieces too.
Yeah. No, for sure. So I'm writing my first book. I'm working on it. And it's Healing Through the Leaf. Yeah, I know, right? It's so exciting. I kind of talk about that in my book, kind of like growing up in a house that's full of like yelling and drama and shit like that, that like
Mhm.
I find myself so tense all the time, and knowing what it was like to take a deep breath and relax and feeling good is wild, because you don't realize you're just holding, that's just cortisol building up in your body, and it's
Oh yeah.
and it's a learned like response. It gets a like muscle memory, it's just in there. And then like the moment you try to meditate, or you try to like push yourself, even with meditation, I'm like, okay, 5 minutes. But like I used to really get into it and go places. Like meditation is so dope.
Yeah.
And doing
When you can get to that space, but sometimes it's just a little anxiety provoking because you're like, oh my gosh, I feel stable. And then all that shit comes back
yeah,
because it's still in your body,
yeah,
or
because
there's an epigenetic factor, right? Where you're just like, hey, my genes have changed to adapt to this thing. And now my parent felt this, and this is the response
for
my body's having.
sure it does change your DNA, like for real. Like it's crazy what you know, our things that we go through, our environment, even things we put in our fucking mouth, like change
Mhm.
our
Yeah.
DNA, and like, yeah, freaking free radicals and stuff. Ooh,
Mhm.
like everything, right?
Yeah, everything is true for sure.
I like to combat that with cannabis.
So how what so as like on a professional level, like help to educate me on like what that looks like in terms of supporting clients, what to be, especially from a medical perspective too, right? Like, I mean, I got the psychology, the counseling part, right? The therapy part, like, hey, is this interfering with your life negatively, right? But like from like a medical perspective, what do you notice, or like what could be helpful for psychotherapists to know in terms of how to support clients, what to be looking for, what to um, and we can't like technically recommend this. We can refer out, of course, right?
Right,
We have
right.
to
Yeah.
obviously act within our ethical scope, but like, yeah, what could be helpful for us to know as a nurse coach, from this perspective of cannabis? Like what would I don't know, help educate me too.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I will preface this by saying that like most of the things that I have gathered is through experience and the use of plant medicine, and like having lupus, and then having used cannabis a lot when I was younger because I loved it. Um, but and that I educate. Like I don't, technically, recommend cannabis, although RNs are can recommend things. It's just I think there's like a blurry line there when it comes to cannabis, and plus like I really have to go back into reading I mean I have it somewhere. I need to read it again. So I
Mhm.
know. But I think, if I can offer the education, but either way, like if you're using cannabis to the point where you're like using it to be numb and you're not using it to like,
Deal with your
work,
problems or
yeah,
Mhm.
internally. And that's with anything. Like if you don't put the work in, then you're not going to put that out. However, I will say something about cannabis is that when you are hurting, like use over time, like, oh my God, my body feels good. Even with CBD, like people are like, oh, I don't feel anything. But over time, they're like, oh, I can walk longer. I'm
Mhm.
getting better sleep. And then, so it's just amazing. And just knowing what the endocannabinoid system does. So the endocannabinoid system, if I can say this quickly somehow without, you know, is a system that like regulates all of your other systems to put you into homeostasis.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
That is how I feel about like, what the fuck? Are you serious? That is wild. So basically, like, you know, when we can supplement our endocannabinoid system without using or without getting high, basically.
Mhm.
And I think that is beneficial for everybody to know. Like, this is just my personal opinion. I feel like because you and I are very different, and cannabis is a very individualized medication. Um, then like what works for me may not work for you. And I feel like there's this thought out there, and I might sound like a radical, but is to really hold space for the amount of cannabis somebody is using, if that is what it takes to get them doing the thing they got to do, like live life, be happy. Because I
Mhm.
think for like, I don't know what it is, but for whatever reason, it's like it's okay to be fucking miserable. Like,
Mhm.
but as long as you like aren't, doing drugs, or if you're not smoking pot, like if you're happy and, doing like smoking pot or whatever, cannabis, it's just like that's wrong. Like why? It's not unhealthy. It's kind of just like any medication regimen. You're trying to find the perfect fit for you. So if you don't want to get stoned, THCA, you were asking about that, which
Mhm.
is basically like the buds, like the stuff that
Mhm.
you get. And then and this is how these illegal states get away with selling it, and they grow it in their states too, which is nice. It's
Yeah.
homegrown, is that they sell these buds to you, and in that moment, it's still an acid. And then once you spark it up or you put it in the oven to make some kind of edible, then that is when you will decarb the cannabis and it turns into THC.
Mhm.
But before that, you could also get THCA and grind it up and put it in your smoothie. Like most people
Mhm.
don't like that because they don't like marijuana. Like I will eat it. That's how much I love it. I want it. It smells so good. Like you learn which strains you need because like you're craving that strain. It's wild. I feel like that's how connected you can get with the.
Yeah.
So I have so
Yeah.
woo-woo theories about like even growers who grow their set of plants. They're never, the same, that they're not like reproducible over and over again. They're all very unique to like their experience while they're growing, which is
Mhm.
the dopest.
Mhm. Yeah. It reminds me of oh, I need to look at his name. The guy who did all the research on water and the memories of water.
Mhm.
Doctor, it starts with an I. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Japanese guy, I don't know his name off the top of my head, but
Yeah.
yes, I know what you're talking about. No, for
Um,
sure. And
um,
yes, please go on. Tell me.
no, I'm gonna look it up to
Oh, you're
see.
like, I want to look up. Yeah,
Yeah, the
it's
water
the
mom.
it's pretty dope. Yeah. And I am like
Um,
a geek too about water. I just think it's so powerful and cleansing, that it has so many properties that we don't really even think about and give it credit to. And it's within our bodies. And it's
would
passed
be
through
really
like
cool, I think.
so many
Mhm.
people. I think about weird shit like that. Like in meditation, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so grateful for this water and how amazing like it's been through like the ground and different parts of the earth and animals. And it's just so
Yeah.
profound in that moment that even my ancestors, like they drank from that water. And I just think like, whoa.
Well, yeah, because like I think we live in a society where we stay so disconnected. It's in we are also just so disconnected from the land in general, but we rely on these false connections as opposed to what we knew to be true and what our bodies knew to be true, right? So living in relationship with the land in the same way that our ancestors did or not. That doesn't happen anymore. But I think, and I talk to my girls about this too, like it's really it can be a comfort if you're like, hey, that's the same moon that your ancestors looked at, like
Yes,
you're
that's
just like
so wild.
there's
Yeah.
yeah, but that relationship with water, the plants, like what they need, learning how to listen, um what the plant needs, right? Which I think it sounds like you're totally attuning to, right? It's just like, hey, I know my body well enough that I'm needing this strain,
Oh,
or
yeah.
this particular kind of plant. Like, gosh, to be in a relationship with yourself and in relationship with with a plant that's nonverbal, but like you know it that well.
I mean, I
It's
love it that much.
yeah, but like but even still, just like it's so I don't know. It's a communication that is a real gift.
Oh, thank you. Oh my God, I appreciate that. Oh, that means so much to me. Oh my God, when you reached out to me, I was like, oh my God, that's so wild. Because so for a while though, I'm just gonna put all my business out there, okay? Like I felt really
I
disconnected
know.
from my ancestors. And I was like, when was the last time I felt really connected? Or I felt just disconnected. I'm like, when was the last time I felt really connected? And then I kept thinking about it and thinking about it. And then I did like a coaching session like with a spiritual, I call him a spiritual guru, but
Yeah.
he's a business coach too. And I was like, I just need you to show me how you like hold this God essence, and he's just like, I'm generally not a fan of like white males. I mean, or males in general, I feel some kind of way. But I
Yeah.
just felt so surrounded by like pure, genuine love. And, he had his wife there. I never felt so secure around a male like that much before. And that's a whole nother thing we could fucking talk about some other time.
Well,
But
I just want to hold that for a moment because like that's a remembrance in your body of the healed male ancestors that you do have, right? Like for them to come for that to come through and to be like, this isn't new. It might be new to you in this lifetime, right? But like the
right.
remembrance that your spirit, right? And maybe on a cellular level or experiencing is like this healed part of male energy that can hold space for you as a Latina, as a nurse, as a mom, like who showed up, like that's there, that's in you already, Yeah, that's so beautiful.
Yeah, no, how did you get to that point where you were like, I really am into this ancestry thing? Is it like a book that you read, or was it like, um,
How much time you have? It helps with a book. So I
what's
told you that I don't know if you've read either of the books that I sent you, like specifically my grandmother's hands.
no, I haven't
Um,
read either one of them, but I'm so
okay,
to like find them on Audible and read them, or listen to
yeah.
them.
Well, I mean, my grandmother's hands, like you really have to. That one's real tough. So you're gonna have to piecemeal that one because that's a lot of critical, or like it's race theory, but it's also like it's huge, like in deconstructing how you understand yourself, right? But my point is like in reading that, there are exercises, somatic exercises that communicate with your ancestors. So I kind of started this process. I always was like kind of had an awareness or a little bit of an attunement, but didn't really like lean into polishing it. During the pandemic, I'm going to try and say this super fast. During the pandemic, I was reading this, I was starting to go through some of these exercises and reading it. And there was like a name that one of the exercises is like, just open yourself to an ancestor. And if a name comes to you, just let it go or let it just experience it. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
one did, and I had done actually when my daughter was little. I remember like looking up some, and like great grandparents and just kind of like doing
Oh,
some stuff.
yeah, yeah.
So his name wasn't like, I was like, oh, I wonder if I'm just thinking about that, because I know this one thing. I think anytime you question that, like just be like, yeah, 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 but this is for real. Because like when it's incessant, that's legit.
Yeah.
And so I kind of started to like do a little bit of research during the pandemic, and I found like one person, my great great grandmother, and the person who came through was her husband. And I think he was like directing me to her. Anyway, she was about my same age during like the 1918 pandemic. She had a ton of kids, and I just sort of like I wouldn't say like I became possessed by any means, but like I became obsessive with her story. And she had like 12 kids, but like there was one kid that she had who died of diphtheria when she was 7. And what's interesting is, so I had a baby, lost that between my first and second daughters. This is a baby that was terminated for medical reasons before the laws changed here in Texas. Um, and interestingly, like that was its own process. So that was in 2018. This was long before this whole thing. But his name is Julian, and this ancestor's middle name was oh my God, I'm blanking on it. How she would be so mad at me? Julina.
Oh,
Um, and so I started doing this process, and I was also doing acupuncture, like with a shaman at the time. Um, Going through all of this, I was not wanting to do talk therapy because I'm like, I'm talking all fucking day, right? I don't know what else to say about this pandemic because I'm holding my feelings when I don't know what's gonna fucking happen. My clients don't know what's gonna happen. Like I don't want to talk to nobody. But I'm obviously holding their pain too, right? Um, so I'm doing her stuff, and I become obsessed with her story of losing this 7-year-old daughter. Um, so much so that like I still have the death certificate on my phone. And so I started to just like something just felt off, and I started to understand that like the pain that I felt with the loss of my baby was a lot of her pain. But interestingly, like her son, my ancestor was born before this happened, so this could not be a DNA link, if that makes sense,
yeah.
because he was the first. He was her oldest child. My great grandfather was her oldest child. This was like her 10th child or something. So he would have been like 19 or something when this daughter died. But I started to have this understanding of like,
Night.
yes, my pain was real, but like her pain, I'm still holding her pain.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm like I have to do some kind of death ritual. I need to figure out how she can let this go. And at one point, I had an audio. I was falling asleep, and I heard a little girl say "Mama," and I'm like, I know my girls, like I know their voices.
Yeah, yeah.
And I could feel that child, and I'm like, and I could tell you she had curly hair. Like I don't know how I know this, but so I know
You
this is
just
super fast.
know.
We have to go like 2 minutes. But I was like, I need to do some kind of death ritual, and I didn't know what that looked like. But I was like, you know what? The ancestors will figure this out. So like I was starting to have communication. I was really in communication. Ada was her name, like the mom's name, a lot. And so I found the cemetery that they were buried in, which was only like 10 minutes from where we grew up. So like I brought flowers for the mom, and I brought certain gemstones to like make a heart. And then I made a crown for the little girl, to be like, hey, like this is, I'm remembering you. Y'all got to figure this out. So I think part of that work is like understanding the generational pieces that you hold and what you're willing to do. You can always pray for them. You can do whatever. But like, it's not yours to really hold. So I was like, I love you, but I have to give this back to you. Um, and I promise I'll keep working on this, and I'll take care of your graves here. I think it's really important. So like this started,
Oh, you're good.
all this started during that time. I started reading more, like connecting with more. Um, and so I go to the cemetery, I do this death ritual. There starts to be this shift. I notice like she's shifting and I'm shifting. I'm not feeling the same way about that, even though I'd already had another child in between. Like it was just not, I was still feeling connected to his spirit. But like it wasn't as sad, you know. So I started to see this shift happening, and I started to become more in relationship with her. Started to hear these messages, and then like I don't hear it, I just feel it. Like I don't really know
Right.
what's going to come out of my mouth until I'm like blah blah blah. Like when I wrote you, I was like, here's this, and then the last, and I know it's ancestral based because if it's only in my head, like I can let it go. But
Right.
like if they're a message that they send a message that like you got to give to somebody else, they're like, I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, girl, I'll get it, I'll get it, I'll get it, I'll tell them. And that
I
honestly is
love
what
that.
helps them. Then it's like, okay, once I do my part,
They
so
leave.
it's creating a boundary for sure. But what I want to finish saying about this is like I started that work then. This is a big impetus. I started being able to have these messages and just, you know, I still get shy. I'm like, oh, I sound weird, but I'm like, no, I need to just let that go. Like, hey, here it is. You can take it or leave it. I don't give a shit. Like, it's gonna change my beliefs.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Like it's either going to align with them or not. And like most, I mean, hopefully, most time it does align, but like
yeah,
sometimes we push
some of
buttons
it,
without,
but it's fine. That's fine. It's
yeah.
not my message. I feel like it's not my message to hold. Like, I'm supposed to give it to you. You do what you want with it.
Yeah,
Um,
I love that.
but so the last thing I'm gonna say about that, so about that's how that process started. Um, and that's like my favorite place to go now. It's like this family cemetery where there's like several generations. And I don't know that they think, I don't believe, I think I can access them anytime, but it's really a place of
Right.
solace. And so I told them, I was like, hey, oh, and about this time too, I felt the little boy, Julian, that I had was also with his ancestor, which really helped me to feel better. I was like, I
Yeah.
can't be his mom, but you can be. And she's the only person I trust with him.
Yeah.
So I promised, there was a point where I'm like, I promise, thank you for taking care of my baby. I promise I'll take care of the graves of your baby and whatever. 2 weeks later, I get pregnant and I start to realize that we have exchanged children. So she has the my baby that I lost, and the baby she couldn't give up um, is now my third child.
That is,
So it's incredible. And I
yes.
didn't. I started to put it together, but when I was pregnant with him, he was like, "Oh, I tried to come in before my first daughter, but I got stuck." He was like, "I got stuck." I'm like, "I don't know what that means," but I think they couldn't have that bond. Like he felt she was a girl, obviously, in that lifetime, but like couldn't let that go until things were equitable. And so we trusted each other enough to do this healing work so that I now have, so this baby got to come back through, or, you know, her daughter, now my child, you know, got to
Yeah.
come through. Um,
That's
and
so
so
awesome.
it's incredible. It's kind of weird. People are like, oh, I'm like, I don't
No,
know.
no, I love that because I feel like I just think it's so amazing that you're so connected that you can like I think I would like to say I think we're all capable of hearing if we let ourselves hear, but I think it's amazing that you're like that connected and you're not like using drugs.
Well, I think, you know,
And
I
I
think
say drugs, like
that's one avenue, right? But like,
for like
I think
plant medicine.
well, yeah, but I think you can also like I think most people, if you're getting to that vibration, like you're gonna be able to access it. That doesn't mean I can switch into it and be like, oh yeah, you, because I mean, I have a life, I got a
Yeah,
job
yeah,
to do too, you know, like
yeah.
so. But I think most people can if you're open to that level of elevation. And I'll tell you, like another once you attract it, like so even just in us connecting, I'm like reconnecting after what 30 years, like
Yeah, it's
that's
so
gonna no shit. Like yesterday, I went out to I'm really close to my grandfather who's also passed away, and I can like feel his energy a lot. I went out to a property that like my dad recently um, deeded over to me that belonged to my grandfather. So I'm trying to fix it up. I'm gonna try and work out of there. I always have like a higher elevation when I'm there, and I go out there and like they're cutting the trees in the backyard, like the power lines. And so I was like, hey, I kind of have this stuff that needs to be wood chipped. Like legit, this happened yesterday. Um, can you do it? And the guy was like, this feels like a really good area. And I was like, yeah, and he was like, so yeah, like, and I was just like, oh, thank you so much, thank you. And he's like, are you Buddhist? So I was like, no, like, I mean, I just kind of practice spirituality, like, I have a Christian background, whatever. He's just like, well, I talk to dead people. Dead people give me messages, and I just kind of relate them to other people. I was like, why are you, I'm thinking like, what is it? Like, because so you just
He's
attract
fucking
this.
with me. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, like, there's no way he could have known this,
Right, right.
and I mean, I hope that, like it was really cool. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just like, and he like felt safe enough, and he was like, you know what? I think you should lean into your gift, and I was just like, you just never know, like when you
yeah,
open yourself up to synchronicities, right? Like
for sure.
your life
Absolutely.
abundance just flows, man. So I think anybody can, like with or without plant medicine, but like they might help
No, for
it.
sure.
It could, and I think, yeah, I think that there's a lot of possibility if you're open to like, because I think we question ourselves so much, like, was that for real or was that like my thought?
Yes, like not trusting our intuition, not knowing what that voice is, even like
Mhm.
you are we, instead of saying I hear voices,
Mhm. Yeah, I know, right?
you
Like,
know, I like really hesitate to tell like my social worker, whatever, psychotherapist, what the shit I'm into. I'm just all like, I'm gonna be quiet.
I think that really that sucks because then it's like that limits you, and
Yeah.
but then you're conforming to her.
Yeah. For
Um,
sure. Like I think
you know,
there's this fear there, which I need to release, is that if I say something, they're gonna be like, you need some medications. Let's quiet down
well,
the
or
voice.
just even the fear of rejection, like, oh, I'm not sure. Tell me more about that. As if you like, especially as an attuned person, when they're picking up
Yeah,
what you're laying down,
that's
versus like
true.
and I think that's probably in addition to being in an abusive system where you were not believed. Like I think there's that challenge there of like, well, what if not only what if they prescribe me a med, but like what if they just this is very vulnerable. A spiritual process is so vulnerable for someone to not hold that for you. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. No, for sure. I don't understand. Like, I'll say this. I don't,
mhm,
I would never ever want to take somebody's belief system away from them. Like, how dare I think that I'm right? I don't know. Like, personally, it's all a fucking theory. We don't know. Like, I've helped many people pass. And what I
mhm,
feel in my heart is that I know when they leave because I feel like the
you
energy is
feel it.
really back into the universe. And I feel it like I've been woken up by a phone call, but like before that, I had this wild ass dream about a patient I took care of. And I actually cleaned his flower because it was getting all dusty yesterday. And I still have it. So I had this dream where he just got up and walked out his window to the big bright light. And then like his mom spoke to me like I didn't know, like I just knew it was her. And because I questioned like, did I do enough? Like and she was like, you did enough. So I feel like maybe I had at one point, maybe I was there and I did it through my dreams. And this is one thing I need to dive into a little more is that with cannabis, so I think it's a mindset because I remember I like to lucid dream. I love to fucking lucid dream. That's another thing I'm into. And I haven't been able to do that or even remember my dreams. And I feel like I'm telling myself the story that it's because I smoke cannabis because it does help people with PTSD, helps them forget. But at the same time, when I, going back to that whole way earlier, this is the ADD kicking in, is that when I felt like when I was connected to my ancestors, it's because I was like doing the damn thing. So I was like doing, I was doing OnlyFans. But I was like praying to my ancestors like every day and I was doing the damn thing. Like I just felt so connected to something greater than me and that like everything was going to be okay. And like I really don't remember what like happened to lose that connection. But I think just tapping into that or whatever that is for anybody, like I'm not going to put somebody in a little box like you believe in angels or you have a divine counsel. Like I legit feel like I have a divine counsel like there,
Yeah.
who's
You have a
got
whole team in the end. Like they're all, yeah. If you're willing to tap into it. But I
yeah.
think, what's interesting too is like, I remember someone was like, well, I want to tap into it. I told them, like, if anybody wants to talk to me, I'm here. I'm like, okay, like, there's still there's not that much difference between being alive or dead. You don't just walk into a room, of like alive people and be like, I'm here if anybody wants to talk to me. No, like you gotta kind of strike up a conversation or you
Right.
got like there's a
Yeah.
relationship. It's not just like Yeah, I mean, I think with spirit guides, you can be attuned to that, but it's just like if you're trying to really open yourself up, you don't just be like, give it to me, like it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
hey,
yeah.
how's it going? Like this is a really precious time. Like, oh, I'm so like I would love a relationship.
Right.
Let me start off the relationship by, I don't know, like inviting you to enjoy this water with me or whatever the fuck I was like,
Yeah,
smoke a
yeah.
joint with me or whatever. Like,
Like holding
like,
space, or even gratitude, I think is huge. Um,
mhm.
like if we show gratitude to those things, but yeah, but anyways, and
Yeah.
I love this conversation, but if somebody's not into wanting to take their pills, I can just educate, and that's basically what I say is I
Mhm.
educate, and then I do offer coaching. I do have an offer coming out, like this is going to be like my first offer I really put out there. I want to do like a membership, and then I'm gonna have
Mhm.
like a private Facebook group. So like I'm holding space. I can do this. Like I'm
Mhm.
gonna be all right. But I really want to put myself out there, but like, because I just want to tell everybody, like, I'm trying to preach the gospel.
Well, and I think like what's great is like you're also supporting that with like finishing nurse practitioner school and being able to open up doorways for yourself of like, okay, if it's, I don't know, like for me, I often refer people who are wanting meds, I'm like, let's go to a psychiatric nurse practitioner who may be able to help you not just with medications, but like like if there's any like again medical pieces or supplements or exercise or whatever, like from this perspective that's going to holistically support your life, not just here's a pill and go.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
think or even like a naturopath or something, like being able to, you're opening a doorway for yourself, a portal,
Oh, yeah,
if you
thank
will.
you. Yes, like I'm super excited about that. I mean, I essentially like you said earlier with your certification, I have to do like 2,000 hours in Nebraska before I can do like full practice and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
that is the goal. So I don't foresee myself going anywhere anytime soon, but I feel like jumping out into like the cannabis space as
Mm-hmm.
as a nurse, like now. Because I am on LinkedIn and there are these like super nerds, experts, like I am just like, you know, so, but I do feel that I have something about like a value to give, and that's like my story. Like, hey, knowing what I knew, I got myself from 12 pills. So like this is like I'm going into week 2 or so of not being on hydroxychloroquine. It's my second try to like take myself off. And so I'm telling myself I'm good. I'm just releasing because I feel like I like a cold or something coming on. I'm like, I'm just releasing. Just,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but
That's
honoring
incredible.
Yeah, honoring that, like, am I sleeping enough? Am I drinking enough water? Am I taking care
Mm-hmm.
of this vessel that was given to me? Like it's the only one I got. Like, let me
Mm-hmm.
treat it, you know, respectfully or with honor, and gratitude because
Yeah.
yeah, I am really in that space where I feel like that as long as there's air in my lungs, then I do have something to say and like this is it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. Well, I love that you're implementing the wisdom that's already inside of you.
Oh my
I
God,
think
thank
that's
you.
being connected with that is so
Oh my
important.
God, girl, synchronicities. Because I'm all like, when I call it to my ancestors, I call out to the wisdom that that exceeds space and time. Like it's right
Mhm.
here. It's
Yeah,
right
you know how to access it for sure. Oh, I'm
here.
so glad you have a lot of you're on a wonderful you have wonderful momentum and like huge support system behind you.
Oh my God, thank
Like
you.
I think it's really precious.
Yeah, and I want
You
to be
know,
here for whatever you're here for too, because you know, like I don't know. It's just
being
sometimes,
connected,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. No, for sure. I love that. I'm so glad we could
Yeah,
connect. I am
perfect.
so honored. Thank you for like holding space
Well,
with
same
me.
here. Thank you. I'm so glad we got to see each other and
Yeah, me
we'll
too.
stay connected and talk soon. Thank
Yes,
you.
for sure. Yeah. Bye.